We know you guys are probably wondering, marriage is such a big commitment. Is it really that worth it?
We're going to share with you guys the marriage life versus the single life from our own relationship in regards to cost of living, companionship, satisfying sex, and children.
And Lord willing, it'll convince you that you should get married too.
When it comes to cost of living, back when I was a bachelor, I was all about the savings, ready to go. When I got out of school and just doing that postgraduate life, I actually wanted to minimize the amount of work that I had to do and minimize the amount of income that I needed. So I actually planned to live out of my '04 Civic for a while and purchase a 24-hour gym membership so I could still shower. And it just seemed so free and appealing to me to just be able to eat as cheaply as I wanted so that I could get out of that work like I mentioned. And yeah, I remember for my meals, I would just make some nice white rice, cook up some fried eggs, which is what I grew up on. And then when I ran out of eggs to eat with the rice, because obviously you gotta eat something with the rice, I would eat it with potato chips. Good times, good times. No, they weren't good times.
No, yeah, when we were dating long distance, if you guys don't remember from our previous video, but Shem would show me his meal and it would be like rice with Trader Joe's nuts. And I'd be very appalled, like, what is this? It's not a complete meal. This is not okay.
Thankfully, I realized that one of the greatest joys and delights in my life is to be able to come home to Joanna and each day have that stability and security of building that home together. It reminds me of Proverbs 31 verse 27, where it talks about the godly woman. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and bless her, her husband also, and he praises her. And most of the antagonism that comes from having this married life of building a home together is actually from a non-committal lifestyle. And it really comes down to a fundamental misunderstanding of how God's designed humankind, because in the beginning, God has made them male and female, and God has joined them together, Adam and Eve being the original archetypes of what mankind is to be. And so, single life is actually an exception to the rule. It's not an alternative mainstream lifestyle that we've come to believe in our modern culture, but God's designed men and women in general in his perfect wisdom to come together. And you see that in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, when God is talking about Adam and he says, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him." And God declared that union very, very good.
And that leads us to our next point, companionship. And when I think about companionship as a single person, I think about high school and how it was really easy to build bridges and make friendships with people based on common interests, shared hobbies, but then it was also equally easy to burn those bridges. And I especially remember doing that when I would hear about somebody talking behind my back and I'd be like, I thought they were my friend. And then just burn those bridges. And you know, that's really easy to do when there's a lack of commitment, and marriage is not like that.
Marriage is not like that at all, because the very foundation and the outset of it is the covenant that you make in the beginning of marriage, which enables all of the security and the stability to just know that no matter what happens, you have total acceptance in the relationship. That's what makes it so exciting. Got my Bible right here once again. Ephesians chapter 5 verse 25 says, "For husbands to love their wives just as Christ also loved the church." It's an unconditional love, a self-sacrificial giving of the entire self, no matter how ugly or how beautiful or how blemished the bride is, right? And the wife must see to it that she respects her husband in verse 33 of Ephesians chapter 5. And I can definitely see that for me, just being able to come to the end of a really long day and to be able to wash up together and to be able to share all of my hopes and my fears and my anxieties and worries, or just even the things that I'm excited about, sharing my life with Joanna and just being able to receive her support and comfort and prayers is so wonderful to know that no matter what, she's with me for the rest of my life. And that just enables you guys to be so comfortable, not in a bad sense, but in the sense of being best friends. Yes, even to the point that when you may have some bodily noises like burping or farting, that, you know, it's just like, oh, you know, ha, 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 ha. We're best friends. That's okay.
The farting comes from his end, but women don't fart.
Women don't fart at all. Anatomically, it's impossible. Maybe butterflies come out and rainbows, unicorns, but yeah, That's all there is. The third thing to think about when you're talking about the marriage life versus the single life is satisfying sex. And I know you're thinking to yourself, what are you talking about? Satisfying sex in marriage? I'm watching the TV shows and that is not what I'm seeing. Sex on the TV shows between married couples is boring and just awful and terrible.
Or just doesn't happen at all.
Just doesn't happen at all, right? They just don't have sex at all. But let me first tell you straight up that single life sex is where terrible sex is, because by definition, it's self-indulgent. You're just preying off of the other person to get your physical high, and then inherently, it becomes a transactional relationship where it's like, if the guy doesn't give her the physical needs that she wants, or if the girl doesn't give the guy the physical needs that he says that he needs, or the standards of beauty and the standards of satisfying my sexual lust or my appetites, then all of a sudden you fall out of love and you're not meeting the transaction, you're not meeting the bottom dollar, and you're not paying your rent, if you will, and which naturally leads to a breakdown in the relationship. And who wants to live like that? It's so insecure, it's so painful to even just think about dwelling in that kind of a life.
Yeah, and that reminds me of when I had dated a guy back when, even before we were dating, I felt like I had to perform in a certain way or outperform the girls that he had dated in the past. And it was just a really bad relationship because I felt like I had to constantly win his affection, and that's just not the way that God designed sex to be.
Yeah, exactly. That is not what marriage was designed to be. And the beautiful thing about marriage, having that total and full acceptance, is being able to have the sweetest, most satisfying sex now, because it's much less about having a performance, or it's just not even about having a performance, and it's about having that full acceptance, that total harmony and appreciation of one another. And it's selfless, pointing at each other, just focusing on the other person's pleasure and joy, and being able to show and demonstrate to the other person how much you care about them.
And that leads us to our fourth topic, children. And we think about 2 Timothy 3:14-15, where Paul is writing to his spiritual son, Timothy, and how he, from a young age, grew up with the spiritual teachings from his mother and grandmother. And we see how important and awesome it is to be able to have that legacy to pass down to the next generation.
Exactly, yeah. Back during my single life, when I was thinking about my legacy, I wasn't thinking about children at all. Just as a non-believer, I really wanted to be a world-famous dance teacher, traveling around, and I got a taste of the travel life, not necessarily from the dance teaching, but just like in a study abroad program. And I remember just thinking to myself, man, it's so sad that I'm building all these relationships with people that I'm meeting along in my travel, but I'm never going to be able to see them again. Well, that's totally different with marriage, because not only do I have my best friend here that I get to invest my whole life in, but we get to work together as a team to invest our whole lives into our little children, and Lord willing, there will be many more to come. Such a beautiful thing to be able to build a legacy together. And that's the fourth reason why marriage is such a beautiful thing. We hope you guys are convinced and compelled and encouraged to go and get married and to see how beautiful marriage is. For you married couples out there watching with us, why don't you comment below what are one of the biggest blessings that you see in your marriage life versus your single life? And if you're not married, list down below in the comments for us what is one thing that you look forward to the most in terms of getting married yourself. And if you really like this video, click that like button and hit that subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you guys in the future for more videos on helping you walk with God in your marriage.
See you guys next time.
See you guys next time.